Hello everybody, I'm Rumple, at least here on YouTube I am. Some of you IRL might know me by Mika, and this is my FNAF AU Q&A video. I asked my subscribers a few weeks ago if they had any questions for me about my FNAF AU or about myself, and I got a few responses. For some of these questions, I got you know those gacha style questions where it's Q&A videos specifically meant for certain characters? Like you're asking the character themselves. I've never been a gacha tuber, but I know mostly that's where that style of video stems from. But I'm just prefacing, however you pronounce that, by saying that I'm just going to be answering those questions myself as the creator of this AU, as if they were asked to me about these characters instead. In the background, I'm just going to have some speed paints of my art going while I answer these. After that long intro, which it was only a minute, but still I don't want to bore you guys, I'm gonna pick out this first question here from one of my mutuals, Anthony Artwork. He has incredible art. I love his FNAF AU and his style. It's amazing. Please go check him out. Cutting in here from the future just to say you might also recognize him as the voice of William in my Susie video. He said, "Something I've been wondering off and on about your AU, was William ever sadistic to animals in his childhood / did he have any sort of indication early in life about his homicidal endeavors? Full disclosure, I'm asking because I have a special interest in serial killers and I know you put a lot of realistic influence into your AU. So I was wondering how much William showed any signs of being a serial killer when he was younger, if any. Sorry for the long comment and explanation of the question, I'm a bit long-winded sometimes. You know what, that's okay, I'm very long-winded too. If my subscribers know one thing about me, it's that I'm long-winded. I yap people to death, like even in this video I'm gonna be yapping all to death. I hope you know that. That's what you're signing up for here. But actually getting onto the question here, William in my AU 100% showed signs. I'm imagining as a kid he was like huge into taxidermy. Yay, how fun! Taxidermy!
Why'd you do that?
I just wanted to see what its insides looked like.
But I thought it would be a really clever way to segue into his suit-making endeavors in the future. And, yeah, taxidermy's always really creeped me out, so I thought it would be fun if he did it. I imagine he would definitely be cruel to animals, which you could see later on, in adulthood with Susie's dog, harkening back to that. But I like to think he wouldn't be cruel to bunnies, cause that's his favorite animal. This next part isn't like homicidal or anything, but I do think it's relevant. I like to think that he showed very early signs of his personality later on. Like, he'd actively, I'm mixing up my words here. He'd massively act out and seek attention, nightmare of a kid, probably broke stuff a lot. Also, lack of empathy and compassion, flips on a dime, which never really changes. I think I've used that phrase to describe him like a million times, flips on a dime. But, I just really like emphasizing that he's very, hot and cold, I'll say. But I'd like to think that he carries that childishness into his adulthood and that he never really grows out of it. But it starts showing when he's a kid. And as he becomes an adult, it becomes more dangerous because he actually becomes capable of acting on it more, I'd say, towards other people rather than animals. Now, this next question I got a few times, once on my community posts and the other times on my Google form, and it was basically, how did William and Henry meet in your AU? I was expecting this question, I was expecting people to ask this, and I'm very glad that they did. So, in my AU, William and Henry met back in college. They were actually roommates.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
Which you might already know if you've been around here. But, yeah, Henry was, getting his degree. He was majoring in engineering, and William was majoring in business, and pursuing a minor degree in child psychology. Which is, totally something that won't come up and benefit him later. No, sir. For, one of these, I got, what is their age gap? Don't worry, guys, nothing crazy, just 2 years. William's older than Henry by 2 years, don't worry. He just might look way older sometimes because, you know, he's a smoker. the spring locking kind of messed up his health a little bit, to say the least. Which I'll get into in a question coming up soon. Another additional question that I got was, will we know about Henry's childhood? So I've thought about Henry's childhood a little bit. I haven't come up with a lot. I'm hoping to in the future though, so don't worry. I'm hoping to come up with more in the future, but as far as right now, I was thinking he comes from a religious family, probably either Catholic or Mormon, if I had to say, because Utah has a huge Mormon population. He's not from Utah initially, but I imagine his family had to move there at some point. But yeah, I was thinking probably religious stuffy background, and I was also considering having him connect back to Scott's first game. The exact name is eluding me right now, Chips Lumber Co. or something. I'll put it on the screen. But I was imagining it would be cool if his family originally owned the lumber company. This is one of those questions that was meant to be asked to Henry, but I'll be answering it myself, of course. Does Henry know that William killed Charlie? So, at first and for a few years, up until the missing children's incident, he doesn't know that William killed Charlie, until everything blows up. So no, he doesn't know that William killed Charlie until much later when he puts together the pieces and it absolutely breaks him. But this is after the missing children's incident occurs and things go way south for everybody. This user also asked, does Miss Afton miss her children? Definitely. I imagine she's the pillar of the family, she's the stronger one emotionally, she'll probably be less likely to show it, externally, but obviously she's torn up inside. She loved her kids, as most normal parents would, but she tries to be the stronger one, for all of them, and yeah, she misses her kids, she just might not show it as much on the outside. This person also said, can't wait for future vids, keep up the great work. Thank you so much. People like you are a big part of the reason I make content. It means a lot to me that people actually enjoy the videos I put out, and I'm so honored to be able to have an audience like that to make content for, so thank you. Next question. How did William's first recovery from the spring locks go, and how did he react to Evan and Elizabeth's death? Okay, so both are questions with very loaded answers, so I'm gonna address this first one first. How did his recovery from the spring locks go? Absolutely fucking terrible. He didn't recover well. Later on, it leads to terminal illness, and yeah, he never really recovers, I'd say. He loses a lot of weight after the first spring locking, his health just completely declines. His wounds heal, sure, they physically scar, and heal, but it also really messed him up in the head, and he's just never the same. Not mentally and not physically. It even completely ruined his life, I'd go as far as to say. How did he react to Evan and Elizabeth's death? It destroys him. Crushed wouldn't even be the word. After each of their deaths, he's absolutely devastated. With Evan's death, it's more of a sorrow response, he's grieving. It was a freak accident that he didn't downright cause himself. But that leads him to point his frustrations outwards.
I know you miss her, and I know it was an accident, and I know you're in pain, and I wish I could take that away for you. I wish I could shield you from the knowledge that you did what you did, but your sister is dead!
That is the kind of anger he manifests towards Michael, and he's in grief, he's absolutely heartbroken, and with Elizabeth, he's forced to blame himself this time. It's entirely his fault. Evan's death sends him over the edge in the sense that he goes on to kill Charlie, though that is also majorly in part due to his relationship with Henry and his own bitter jealousy / obsessiveness and narcissism. But with Elizabeth's death, I feel like it's even worse. She was his favorite, flat out.
Breaks my heart, Henrietta. I hate to see her unhappy.
I won't talk to you ever again. You're a rotten, mean father. You never give me anything I want. And I won't go to school till I have it.
Veruca, sweetheart, angel.
He loved all of his kids, but she was his favorite. That was his daughter, his only daughter. And the fact that she dies to his animatronic, that, mind you, was meant to kill children, forces that guilt to bubble and go inwards. Like, he could feel more guilt with Evan's death, yeah, like if he had been a little more responsible, or gave Michael more attention, maybe he wouldn't have acted out. But with Elizabeth, it's concentrated on him. He could blame her, and maybe he does a little to try and dispel his own guilt, but he can't bring himself to blame her. It's his fault, and I feel like that her death is what really leads to him going on to kill other children. Like, it's their combined deaths that lead him to go on and do that, but her death just really does him in. Moving on to the next question, what was William's childhood like? So, if you've ever seen the movie Pearl, I have taken a little bit of inspiration from that. I absolutely love that movie. I think it's phenomenal. But that's where a little bit of my inspiration is coming from with this next part. His father was never really a present figure in his life. I've always known I wanted his father to not be very present. But I recently decided that his father is also ill and paralyzed because of it, similar to Pearl's father in the movie.
Leaving your mother alone to rot so you could dance with a bunch of city whores. Let alone the illness you may contract and spread. You've seen what it does to your father. That's what you want for yourself and others?
However, the difference comes in the fact that William's mother is absolutely abusive. Not in a physical way. Not physically. She never hits him, never scalds him, like, doesn't hurt him physically. It's just mental and emotional. She's negligent. Yeah, and so he never really got much attention as a kid, which I think is in part what causes him to act out later for attention.
Have you ever been to a birthday party for children and one of the children won't stop screaming because he's just a little attention attractor? When he grows up to be a comic or actor, he'll be rewarded for never maturing, for never understanding or learning that every day can't be about him.
To desperately seek attention, and even when he goes into adulthood, all he wants is attention. Attention from Henry, attention from his wife, like, attention from his kids. Like, he just wants nothing but attention and validation. I like to think that, in part, this is why Elizabeth is his favorite. She's a daddy's girl. Like, she looks up to him, while Evan is more of a mama's boy, and Michael, his oldest, doesn't look up to him anymore. He's a teenager. He's rebellious. And even in part, Spring Bonnie, when he's Spring Bonnie, he gets attention and validation.
Oh yeah, that's Willie Badger. He opens for Hoo-Ha in the Jamboree. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ah, ah.
Willie Badger! From kids, sure, but people. And he gets to be center stage, spotlight. I also think when he was a kid, he never really got to be a kid. I imagine he probably had to take care of his father a lot, which he didn't really enjoy. And he never really got to be a kid when he was a kid. Childish, sure, like, I emphasized before that he was childish, as any child is. But I like to think that part of why he wants to open the restaurant in the future is a tribute to the childhood he never had. He is living his childhood later in life and getting to try and make up for what he wasn't able to have before, what he couldn't indulge in before. It's like an escape for him, and as a child, he did also pursue an escape like that. Maybe that's where the Spring Bonnie persona comes from. It's his escape. But, yeah, I like to think that he never really got to be a kid. And when he gets older, he goes on to become the very antithesis of that. Like, through bitterness, like, this childhood wonder that he made for his own wish fulfillment becomes a nightmare for other kids because he's bitter and jealous. And insane, sure, but bitter and jealous. I think that's a very key point to my interpretation of his character, his bitterness, his jealousy, his almost childishness, stemming from things not going his way. This next question is, was William a good father, or did he just ignore his kids before the bite? Now, being completely honest, I hate apathy in characters. Not like other people's characters. Okay, wait, I need better wording here. If you make your characters apathetic, or if you make your version of William apathetic, that's absolutely fine. Don't mind me. I'm not commenting on your version. I just hate writing them myself. Not because I can't, but it just feels boring to portray. Again, this is not a commentary on other people's apathetic versions of characters. You guys are fine, don't worry. Keep doing what you're doing. I just mean, like, it's not fun for me to do. So, I don't know if you'd call him a good father. Obviously, he becomes a terrible dad later, abusive and stuff. But he was definitely a better father before, like certainly active in his kids' lives, far from apathetic and ignoring them. Loved his kids. If anything, he was overly doting, I'd say. Thus the Fredbear plush situation. And I'd say he was even loving to Michael. Just didn't spend a lot of time with him and didn't focus as much on him anymore, to the point Michael probably felt pretty pushed aside and forgotten. Like, sure, Michael was a teenage jerk and he bullied Evan, but before the tragedy, things were still fairly well and good. Besides the secrets behind the scenes.
I love you.
We should go.
Elizabeth and Evan just got more attention because, you know, how parents can be sometimes. Saying this as an older sibling here who experienced this for a time. They're always going to be busier with the youngest kid or kids, and Michael kind of resented him for that. So it's not like he purposefully ignored Michael. It's just that parents get busy, and when they have favorites, that's often how it turns out. So before the bite, I wouldn't call him a bad dad necessarily, but not a great dad. All his life, he's still insane. It's just that there's a point where he can put that aside for his own kids.
Ways of making you talk to me. Daddy's working right now. Oh my gosh, did you draw this? That is so good.
And there's a point where it peaks when he loses them and he just can't. And he becomes a terrible dad to Michael. And when Michael was a kid, you know, before Evan and Elizabeth came along, he was a pretty good dad to Michael too, so it's just sad how it turns out, because he was a good dad at one point, then a decent, not so great dad, but still tried when Elizabeth and Evan came along, and then just straight downhill when they die. Next question, where did William adopt Betty, also known as Better Michael, and how did they first react to each other? Okay, so for anybody who might not know, I gave William in my AU a cat that he gets after his kids die and after he kills his wife. So when it's just him and Michael in the mid to late 1980s, and the house is feeling a little empty,
Now it's just me, my little guy.
He gets a cat that he names Betty, which is short for Better Michael. Originally made as a joke cat in The Sims, and now she seriously exists in my AU. And I only realized this after the fact, but Betty is also a nickname for Elizabeth, so I thought that would be some uncomfortable layers if she was also a reference to Elizabeth. So, where did he adopt her? I imagine he didn't adopt her, he probably bought her off of a breeder, cause Sphinx cats, they are like very expensive. Finding one in a shelter that isn't already adopted would be like the holy grail.
How much did you pay for that?
Well, it was a little extravagant, but I got a pretty good deal.
Yeah? How much?
$1,000.
On a cat?
Like, yeah, so he probably bought her from a breeder. I know in canon he's very stingy, like monetarily, and I carry that over into my AU where he's very stingy, but still, I imagine he splurged on buying a cat. As for how they reacted to each other, it was love at first sight. This next question is about me, and it's, do you speak Spanish? I should. My grandparents on my father's side are native Spanish speakers. I take a Spanish 3 honors class. I should speak Spanish way better than I do. However, I cannot say that I speak Spanish.
And what is your name, my lovely?
Me llamo Peggy Hill.
Ah, you speak Spanish! In a way.
Very simple words, sentences, far from fluent. I can understand simple stuff. If somebody leaves a comment in Spanish on my channel, I can usually decipher it pretty well without translating and can usually respond to it pretty okay. But I wouldn't say I speak Spanish because I am very much not fluent in it. I speak it very poorly and very brokenly. Is the crying child's name Dave in your AU? So you can probably figure this by this point in the video already. But in my AU, his name is Evan. I'm really not fond of the name Dave for him. I know that's supposedly the solved name now. I'm really not a fan. It doesn't bother me if other people have it in their AU, but I just can't get behind it. It's just because of Dave Miller. It's Dave Miller that messes it up. Like, if Dave Miller had a different name, or like he just didn't exist, then the name Dave would be absolutely fine to me. It's just that, damn Silver Eyes. William being named Dave, like his dead son, would kind of seem weird to me a little bit, so no, he's not Dave in my AU. Okay, here's another set of questions directed specifically to characters, but to William, who do you prefer romantically, Miss Afton or Henry? So you'd hope that William would say he prefers his wife. However, the answer to that is a little bit complicated.
Marvin was never mine. He took his meetings in the boys' latrine. I used to cry, he'd make a scene. I'd rather die than dry clean Marvin's wedding gown. I'm breaking down. I mean, he's clear.
He does love his wife, to be clear. It's not that he doesn't love her. It's just that he's fucking obsessed with Henry, which I took inspiration from the books for that part, that whole obsession with Henry in the books thing. But he's obsessed with Henry. He loves his wife. It's not like he's not in love with her, it's just, you know. I think he may prefer his wife romantically in the sense that, you know, she's comfort, she's support, stability. It's just that he wishes he could also have that with Henry. And in a world or a time where he could, Henry would probably be the answer. Now, next one, who is Elizabeth's favorite sibling? So, I feel like Evan would be her favorite sibling, because, you know, they're a team against Michael, basically. Michael's the older sibling, he's a teenager, ew, he's a jerk.
Thanks. And if nobody wants you sitting at their table, you think they want chummy buttons over here?
And, well, Michael wouldn't pick on Elizabeth. I imagine Elizabeth she doesn't dislike him. It's just that she's just way more inclined towards Evan, and Evan's also a pushover and she's a bossy boots, so I imagine that helps a little bit. She takes after her father in that regard. Like, she's bossy. And Evan will basically do whatever she says. But also, yeah, I imagine they'd be closer. Like, they'd be a team. She doesn't dislike Michael, again, it's just that Michael is, you know, he's a teenager, he's more distant, and Elizabeth and Evan are, like, much closer mentally in age. Now, to Freddy, what's it like being the main singer? I imagine to a degree, the kids, like the ghost kids, are detached from their reality, like, sometimes they're more lucid than others. So, there are times where he'd probably not think anything of it. He would be Freddy. And then there's other times where it's just hell. Like, imagine being a kid trapped in there. It would probably suck. You're the main singer, sure, but nobody knows you're dead in there. Now, for Evan, does Evan forgive what Michael did to him? I wouldn't be surprised if not. Well, okay, that's tough. I'd say that he doesn't forgive him. Like, it's not like he's vengeful. He's not like Cassie. He's not a vengeful spirit. But he's a little kid. He's 8 years old. I know at that age, if somebody killed me, even by accident like that, or if somebody bullied me mercilessly, I wouldn't forgive them if I was that young. Even now, at my age, I don't know if I'd forgive them. It takes a very, very, like, kind-hearted person to do that. Not that he's not kind-hearted, it's just, he's a kid. I don't think he'd forgive Michael for that. At least, not that easily. I can imagine him eventually coming to terms with it. But, like, imagine being 8 years old. Count 'em! 8 years! Your bully jerk of a teen brother kills you at your own birthday party. By accident, sure, but I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed, like, forever. Eventually, though, I imagine it does get put to rest. I don't know, maybe I'm just petty. I have an older and a younger brother, and I know, if my older brother killed me, I would probably hate that motherfucker forever. And don't get me wrong, I love my brother, but you know what I mean. Just saying, don't tell me you wouldn't be angry, at least a little bit, for a while. But on to this next question, which was related to the prior topic. In your AU, how was the Afton brothers' relationship before the incidents? I can imagine Mike in his early years as an older brother feeling jealous of his younger siblings, Evan and Lizzie, for all the attention they received, but then as the years went by, he would play with them and have a good time until William's neglect and favoritism made the resentment that Mike had increase worse in his adolescence, even more influenced by his friends, leading him to cause the bite of 83. I feel like the relationship generally was, well, it was sibling-y, sure, but pretty 50-50. Not like all the time like it became in later years. I imagine earlier on, Michael definitely felt the effects a little more for all the attention they got, especially like when Elizabeth and Evan were babies, sure. I feel like it must have balanced out for a little bit until he became like a preteen or teenager, you know, when adults see you as more independent or whatever. So the kids got way more attention again. In between that, they would definitely still play together, have a good time, because they're still siblings, it's just that they're on different levels at a certain point. When Michael gets into his adolescence and things start to change again, he becomes a little more resentful. Not necessarily towards his siblings, but resentful towards William and stuff like that. Basically, standard sibling relationship. They fight sometimes, they argue, the normal amount, and then later on it just goes on to become more antagonistic and targeted because Michael feels slighted by William. And still, before it ramps up to that point, and Michael starts pulling away and getting more distant and aggressive, they were definitely very sibling-y, hung out a lot, I imagine. Because his anger, again, doesn't really stem from Evan and Elizabeth, though they don't really help. Like, I imagine they get on his nerves, but it just it goes back to his relationship with William. Sometimes the kids hate each other, sometimes the kids love each other, sometimes they're just completely neutral. Michael just goes on to become have more of an issue with it when he becomes more of an rambunctious teenager and starts becoming more rebellious and edgier, and starts hanging out with a crowd that isn't the best influence on him and he isn't the best influence on. So yeah, and then it all comes to a head. For the second question, does Evan possess Fredbear? I've heard theories about the golden duo, Cece and Cassidy, and I would like to know your opinion. So, yes, in my AU, Evan does possess Fredbear, and this is actually part of what... I haven't really explored this too much on my channel yet. I've been toying with the idea of this being what spurs William on to go open Circus Babies, as well as Charlie's death. When they both possess, when Charlie possesses the puppet and Evan possesses Fredbear. I can't imagine Evan would possess Fredbear, like in the sense that it really does anything or it's very clear that he possesses Fredbear, but I think just the inkling, the small idea that his son might be in there somehow, which he is, but William doesn't necessarily know that, is the hunch that William needs to go and try and seek out this whole remnant thing. And then eventually Cassidy, of course, goes on to possess Fredbear as well, because I really love the golden duo idea and theory. For this next set of questions, I have some pretty simple answers. So, Elizabeth, why did you take the ice cream? Well, why not, really? I mean, Elizabeth was, sure, she was a daddy's girl, like, she was the favorite and stuff like that. I feel like, as obedient as she would be, that would also lead her to be a little more rebellious, because she can get away with more. So I imagine taking the ice cream was kind of a no-brainer for her, because, like, this animatronic that she's sought after to go see and has been forbidden from just gave her ice cream. I mean, why not take it? I imagine it was, caution to the wind. I'd take the ice cream too. Cause really, what's the harm in taking an ice cream cone? I mean, it's not like she knew she would be scooped. But, yeah. Miss Afton, how did you meet William? So, I've never quite had a solid idea in mind for this, so this may be subject to change. because I've thought about it. Right now, as it stands, how they met is, I got inspired by that one song, I Love You Like an Alcoholic. Currently, as it stands, they met at a bus stop, of course. I imagine that was just an initial meeting, and then after that, they kept bumping into each other, you know, all cute and rom-com, stuff like that. I've pictured Miss Afton as working at a roller rink, actually, before her and William got together. So while their initial first few meetings were just very brief, very cordial, brief acquaintances, I imagine one day William took Kid Michael to the roller rink, and she happened to work there, and they hit it off. They struck up conversation for a while, and the rest is history. For better or for worse. Last one out of this set is William, what happened to Michael's mother? I've discussed this a few times on this channel, and I'll definitely discuss it many more times because I know the lore behind this is a little finicky and a little bit complicated. But in my AU, back in the 60s, after he and Henry didn't really work out because the whole scenario that I made a little comic on, William goes out, he has a one-night stand with this beautiful woman, Michael's mother, and neither of them really think anything of it. Like, they didn't know each other. It was literally just a one-night stand, a bang and go. They were both young. She was 25. She had a whole career, whole life ahead of her. She wasn't exactly ready to be pregnant, so it was a huge surprise when, surprise, surprise, turns out she's pregnant, and it's because of this guy that she only knew for one night. So she wasn't ready for a baby, but William was. So she gave up full custody to William, and she thought it would be best for Michael, because she didn't think she could provide him the care and the love and support that he needed, like a baby needs. Because it's not like she didn't want Michael, but she felt as though she couldn't take care of him, and that she wasn't ready. For my AU, I take a lot from myself and my own experiences, and it's not like I've ever been pregnant, but I'm just saying the concept of pregnancy is like body horror to me. That's fucking terrifying. And for a woman who's not prepared, that's horrible, that's horrifying. Imagine being pregnant when you're not prepared for the baby. Think in terms of FNAF Into the Flesh.
Have a least favorite story?
I don't know. I think it probably might be the Fazgoo. Or no, I mean, come on. It's got to be the one where the guy gets pregnant with Springtrap's baby. I'm not sure what I was thinking about. You know, again, that's one of those things where, oh man, this is going to be really creepy.
I really hope I awakened some horrible memories for those of you in the know with that one.
And I swear I wasn't picking on MatPat.
That's my favorite FNAF story, you guys. I say through gritted teeth and tears. Seriously though, I promise that's far from my favorite FNAF story. I'm just still traumatized. I'm dealing from the trauma by humoring it. I'm coping. But going back to the point I was trying to make before, meanwhile, there was William, like, overjoyed, stoked, like, wow, I'm having a kid. And he doesn't think twice. He's just like, okay, I'll take Michael. That doesn't mean he wasn't bitter, because he did argue for no visitation, meaning she never got to see Michael. He was a little upset about the situation. Not about having Michael, like, he was happy to have Michael. It was just the whole Michael's mom, her name is Nitara, Michael's mom situation going on. Yeah, she tried to contact Michael over the years through letters and stuff. William would always trash them. What a dickhead.
Oh, we hate you, William!
Jesus Christ, it sounded like the South Park character. I didn't even know I could do that. Good to know my Butters impression apparently isn't that half bad. I feel so unserious right now. I don't even know what I'm doing. Getting back to the original topic, I imagine, I always say I imagine, Michael's mom, yeah, that's where we were. Michael's mom, she goes on to live a happy life. Not, like, completely unburdened, but untouched by the Afton genes and all that crazy fuckery going on over there. She's just kind of upset that she has a kid out there, and, she assumes that he doesn't want anything to do with her because he never replies to the many letters that she sent over the years. And she gets married, she has a family, It's not that she didn't want kids, again, it's just that she wasn't ready. Like, had she had Michael later in life, she probably would have taken him in a heartbeat. It was just poor timing. So she's not a villain whatsoever. I really want to emphasize that. In no way is she a bad mother or a bad guy. It's just that it wasn't good timing for her, and I feel like that's a thing that happens with a lot of women. It's just, it happens. And it's not like she just straight up walked out either. It was a mutual, I want to emphasize this too, as well. It was a mutual agreement between her and William. Once she showed no interest, William just didn't want her around. So she never does get to see Michael again. Though, I really like the idea of Michael seeing her when he's scooped, after he's scooped, when he's unrecognizable. Maybe he goes to try and seek out his mother, and maybe he sees her and the life she's living now. She has a family, this woman he's never met, but he's always dreamed of knowing. And he found a mother in Clara, sure. But it's just like, it's always been a mystery to him. Like, wow, what's my birth mother like? Because I'm sure William filled his head with a bunch of lies, so Michael goes to see it for himself, sees his birth mom, and I think that gives him some closure. Maybe he leaves her a letter and it gives her closure too. Just not in the happy, normal sense. Next question. I am scrolling through my camera roll to find the next question. Okay, next question. This one here is from a very good friend of mine. He's been one of my close friends for friggin' years. Rob said, "Hey bro, hope you doing well. Glad to see you having so much fun in your AU. Actually do be wondering something important. Since from what I've seen from William is that he's very possessive of his spring lock suit, does he have a spare spring bonnie suit for employees that he forces them to wear when it comes to birthday parties and they can attend? Secondly, is his other suits more defective on purpose, or does his sense of perfectionism not allow him to make a faulty product even on purpose?" Okay, I'm gonna answer these both at once because I have two simple answers for them. Okay, so he is very possessive of the spring lock suit, but he still has to lend it out, of course. I imagine they do have spares. They kind of have to. But I imagine, yeah, they have a few spares. It's not like the springlock suit is just his to wear and he'll go feral on anybody else for wearing it, but he is possessive of it regardless. That's basically his baby. That's his persona, his OC. Like, if I lend you out my fursuit, I say that as if I have a fursuit. If I lend you out my fursuit, I'm gonna be very possessive of it. Like, you better be careful with it. I imagine that's his attitude with the employees. Even with the spares. For the second question, I've thought about this a bit. In classic William fashion, he is a contradiction. Sometimes he's a perfectionist. Other times, like when it comes to making animatronics, he is very negligent. So it's not like he has this sense of imperfection that will keep him from making a faulty product. It's not that he's not capable of making a good or perfect or technologically sound product. It's not that he's incapable. It's, again, he's just grossly negligent. And that bleeds into their business, that bleeds into the animatronics. Everything he makes, it's likely to be, he's a little cheap, too, so not the best quality materials either. That's where illusion discs come in for circus babies. It makes everything look a little better, a little snazzier, like he likes it. I feel like at times he just, or most of the time, he has like this kind of willful ignorance. Like, he might think his product is perfect, and maybe sometimes he's not so blind, he could tell it's shit. He thinks his product is perfect, but really he's just cutting corners and, you know, bougie taste on a terrible budget, as they say. I feel like his pride would also keep him from learning how to do things better sometimes. Like, he takes inspiration from Henry. Like, Henry's his main source of inspiration. He wants to make stuff as good as Henry, but at the same time, his pride gets in the way a lot. Anyways, thank you for the questions, Rob. Much appreciated. This next question, I've been eyeing up this entire video, because I've been waiting to I often have a difficult time expressing myself when it comes to this question. Okay, so what sparked the Willry in you? I know that's a weird question, but have you always been a diehard Willry person, or was this more of a recent thing? Okay, don't worry, not a weird question at all, I don't think. I think that's a very reasonable question. This was certainly a more recent development, like, the first video I posted on my channel around that time is when I started to ship Willry. Actually, even less than that. So maybe like just under a year, I think. I don't know, my IRL timeline might be off here. I think it's just under a year. I originally was not a Willry fan at all. Not in the sense that I didn't like it, I just never really thought about it. Like, I'd see people ship it and I'd just kind of move on, like, oh, that's a little strange, that's a little weird, why do people do that? I can't say I was entirely apathetic, I did stick my nose up at it a little bit, like judgy. And then, okay, so you know when you do that thing where, let's say you joke with a friend about how weird or maybe even bad something is, and then you joke about it so much that you actually start to enjoy it, or like the idea or the concept. It's like that one meme with the bird, I'll find it later when I'm editing. It's like that one meme with the bird, where it's like, wow, that thing is shit! And then the bird tries it, and then, wow, this is actually so good! That's what happened with Willry for me. It started as a joke between friends, like just the typical, oh, look at these two business guys, they're just running a business, nothing fishy going on here, nothing gay going on here, just two best friends, two besties, just that kind of joking stuff. And then eventually, it started to tumble, where I realized, hey, this line in the books kind of says William is obsessed with Henry. Like, or not necessarily, it doesn't, I'll look at the line later. It doesn't say he's obsessed. I think it says, like, his passages about him that he wrote in his diary are ranging from, like, hatred to near worship. And I was like, hey, wait, that's actually a really interesting concept. I didn't know that about the books.
But he really was gay.
Oh, no, that's your explanation?
But he was gay. Why should I have to apologize? I saw gay, so I said gay.
And I was like, hey, I kind of want to include that narratively. So then I started thinking about it. I started exploring the concept, like, wow, William is obsessed with Henry. He hates him at the same time. I didn't really know they had that dynamic to their relationship, because beforehand I never really gave their friendship much thought at all. Their companionship, their partnership. Henry was always just like a guy who happened to be there. And then I started thinking about it more. I was like, how do I want to include this? How can I explore this in a way that is interesting? And it's not like it's not interesting on its own. Of course, it's an interesting concept on its own without the romantic parts or anything like that. I've seen plenty of AUs where I absolutely love it, where there's no romance involved and it's just as is, played as is like it is in the books. But I also had like an epiphany around this time that it was actually okay to ship toxic ships.
Look at these guys!
Oh, I love them!
Hashtag relationship goals! William and Henry! Besties! Yes, I ship it!
I love this.
Helium.
Helium?
Helium. Willry for life!
Cause like, I don't know about you guys, but like throughout my childhood, like, shipping was always like war. Like, if you shipped something, like, for me as a kid, I always saw shipping as, like, it had to be positive or it had to be good. Like, wow, look at these two characters, they're perfect for each other! They would go so well together, they would treat each other so nice. But now, at that time, I had an epiphany. Wait, ships don't have to be all nice and perfect. I mean, they can be toxic. I think it was largely a product of cringe culture that made me think the contrary. Like, I remember when I was younger and I saw people shipping William and Henry, I was always like, cringe, ew, cringe, because I always saw people saying the same about it, and similar ships. Like, it's not like they're unconventional as a ship. It's fairly popular from what I've seen. I just mean that, I always saw, certain ships being called cringe because of cringe culture. I think that kind of killed shipping for me for a bit. I just had this epiphany that, wow, it doesn't make me a bad person if I ship these two people who are bad for each other. And I kind of like the way that this could go narratively. Like, this seems narratively compelling to me. And I'm sure to a lot of you, that seems like a no-brainer. Like, of course, there's been toxic couples in media for, like, ever. It doesn't mean it's an endorsement, but I feel like in the kind of bubble I was in at the time, or like the fandom bubble, to me, it was always like treading nails. Like, shipping is a very divisive topic. Like, if you didn't ship something that was nice or good, you were cringe or something like that. I also realized that just because they're bad for each other, or just because they're toxic, that doesn't mean they have to be toxic all the time either. Part of what I realized is I can literally do whatever I want with them. They could be sweet sometimes, they could be cute, and then I could also acknowledge that what they're doing in my AU is bad. William's cheating on his wife. He's crazy, he's fucked up in the head, he murders kids. He and his best friend / lover / business partner's restaurant establishment. He kills Henry's daughter. Realizing I could just put them together and have the story still play out the same was groundbreaking for me. It's an AU, I can do whatever. I'm not saying that they're canon, it's an AU, and that's kind of an eye-opener for me, like, wow, I can literally do whatever I want with them. And so I decided, hey, they seem toxic for each other. I like the idea of what contribution this would have to the story. I think it adds a lot of drama and makes things interesting. I always love a good cheating drama. William cheats on his wife. Go with Henry because that was his lover from college that he didn't get to be with. William is also a jealous, obsessive prick. He kills said colleague and best friend, aka also lover, his daughter, because he is a jealous prick, and also he's going a little crazy. He was already crazy to begin with, but he's going a little crazy. He murders his loving and doting wife, who gets fed up and tries to leave and divorce his sorry ass. And I just think it adds so much more, like, something very compelling. I don't know, I know it's not just a me thing, a lot of people feel the same, but I get why people don't like it, but that's okay. It just feels really good to be able to, finally just, I don't know, be free, do what I want with these characters. Think of it like I'm playing Barbie dolls with my favorite characters, and I am having a blast. Also, I really like the drama that this kind of adds to Henry and Michael's relationship, too. Because in my AU, when Michael leaves William behind, he gets Henry to adopt him and become his legal guardian. And eventually, Michael has to find out that, his uncle figure his entire life was basically the homewrecker to his parents' marriage, and was fucking his dad. And sure, like, Michael had his suspicions, but I feel like that's just another dramatic blow to Michael, because imagine your basically other father figure, the safety figure, is the one who was in bed with your abuser. And to be fair, Henry didn't know that William was an abusive prick or of a father towards Michael, but all the signs were there. I imagine Henry beats himself up about that, but imagine being Michael. Michael reasonably is frustrated and horrified, and that's the catalyst for him going off to sister location. I've been rambling on this entire section, but my point is kind of that Willry for me has such a narrative significance to my AU now. Like, so much in my AU is centered around their relationship, and I really like that. So all this unnecessary rambling to say, it started as a joke, or really started as something I cringed at, then it tumbled into a joke, and then I realized, hey, I actually kind of like this and the idea of this, and then now it's just a significant part of this to me. And I also have other people's AUs to thank, as well as fan art and fan fiction for, studying me into it, and yeah, that's how it turned out. This individual also said, "You are awesome and very loved. Keep doing what you're doing and fighting that good fight. Thank you, and you as well." I rambled about your question for like 10 minutes, so I hope you found a satisfactory answer in there. I know a lot of it probably sounded like fluff, but I'm just very passionate about this topic, so whatever, I guess. But yeah, thank you. I saved the best question, in my opinion, for last. But if this isn't the last question, like if I somehow missed somebody's question, please comment it again down below. Or if you didn't ask a question but you would like to ask me a question, please ask in the comments. I'll reply to you in the comments. I've got all the time in the world. I'll reply to you. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions down below. I hope I didn't miss anybody. I'm pretty sure I didn't miss anybody, but please forgive me if I did. This next question is for William. Are you Skibidi? Yes, William would very much say that he is Skibidi if he knew what that meant. Vanny would probably explain it to him. He would say he's Skibidi. Imagine an old British rotting rabbit man going, "I'm so Skibidi." This is the worst British accent I've ever done, oh my god. That wasn't even meant to be good, and I still fell below my expectations. I'm just gonna keep that in the video. Seriously though, thank you guys so much for sitting through my yap sesh, if you indeed have. I did not expect this video to turn out that long. I genuinely thought that this would be a 10-minute adventure, in and out.
Oh, in and out, 20 minutes adventure.
Anyways, thank you all so much for watching and for being an audience. I hope you have a lovely morning, afternoon, or evening, and see ya.